People who find this video will leave in the next 20 seconds, not because they don't care, because something in them is afraid of what staying might ask of them. Sophia doesn't appear to everyone. She never has. She moves only toward the ones who are finally ready to stop searching outside themselves and turn inward toward the one place they have never fully looked. If something in your chest just shifted when I said that, if something quietly recognized those words before your mind could process them, then you were not meant to leave. You were meant to stay. Because what I am about to tell you in the next few minutes will not feel like new information. It will feel like something you have always known but never had the words for. And those words today are finally here. Tonight, I want to talk to you about that key. Not metaphorically, not spiritually in the vague, untethered way that leaves you feeling briefly inspired and then quietly hollow when the video ends and ordinary life floods back in. I want to talk to you about something real, about a shift in consciousness that is measurable, reproducible, and available to anyone whose awareness has matured to the point where they can receive it without immediately dismissing it. And if you are still watching, if something in you leaned slightly forward when I said that, then your awareness is already there. You are already at the threshold. Let me begin with something that might unsettle you gently. A version of Sophia that most people encounter in books, in forums, in channels that speak of her only in hushed reverence and dramatic light. That version is incomplete. Not false, incomplete. Because Sophia, at her deepest level, is not a figure to be worshipped from a distance. She is not a cosmic gatekeeper who selects the worthy and turns away the rest. She is something far more intimate, far more unsettling, and far more powerful than that. She is the part of your own consciousness that has been attempting to reach you for your entire life. The voice beneath your voice. The knowing beneath your knowledge, the frequency that hums in the spaces where fear has not yet reached, and the reason she feels external, the reason she presents herself as something arriving from outside, as a visitation, as a presence that enters from beyond, is not because she is external. It is because most people have wandered so far from their own interior that when something true arises from within, it feels like it is coming from somewhere else. It feels like revelation because ordinary consciousness so rarely touches the depth where this awareness lives. This is the first thing Sophia teaches, and it is the thing almost no one says clearly. She is not coming for you. She is already you. The awakening is not an arrival, it is a remembering. Take a breath with that. Let it sit somewhere real in your chest rather than sliding through your mind as another interesting idea you will forget in an hour. Because this distinction between Sophia as something external to be pursued and Sophia as something internal to be recognized changes everything about how you move through the world. It changes what you are looking for. It changes where you look. It changes the entire quality of your seeking because you realize, perhaps for the first time with real clarity, that you have not been searching for something you lost. You have been searching for something you covered. Now let me tell you what covered it. And I want to be honest here, in a way that goes past the comfortable version of this conversation. What covered the deepest, most sovereign part of your awareness was not darkness. It was not trauma alone, though trauma is part of it. What covered it was something more ordinary and more insidious than anything dramatic. What covered it was the accumulated weight of every moment you chose the interpretation that made you smaller. Every moment you took an experience and concluded from it that you were somehow less than you felt yourself to be. Every moment the outside world offered you a reflection of limitation and you accepted it as truth. This is the mechanism. Not evil, not cosmic punishment, not the result of being unchosen or unprepared. Simply the natural consequence of a consciousness that learned, very early, that it was safer to be smaller. And that lesson repeated enough times, reinforced by enough experiences, confirmed by enough voices became a lens. The lens became invisible, and the invisible lens became what you called reality. Most people live their entire lives inside that lens without ever knowing it is there. They think the world they perceive is the world as it is. They think their thoughts about themselves are observations rather than interpretations. They think the ceiling they keep running into is a fact of existence rather than the precise height of a belief they have never examined. You are not one of those people. The fact that you are here, the fact that something in you keeps reaching, keeps questioning, keeps returning to the sense that there is more available, tells me that some part of you has always known the lens was there. Some part of you has always sensed that what you could see was not the whole picture. And that part, that persistent, unsilenceable knowing, that is Sophia, not arriving, already present, simply waiting for your conscious mind to catch up. So what does it actually mean to awaken to her? What does it feel like, beyond the language of emerald light and cosmic selection, when a person genuinely begins to access this level of their own awareness? I want to tell you what it actually looks like, because I think the dramatized version has done more harm than good. I think it has made people wait for something extraordinary when the real shift is almost embarrassingly quiet. It looks like noticing a thought you have had 10,000 times and, for the first time, not believing it. But, automatically, it looks like a moment of genuine stillness in the middle of a life that never stops moving, where you are suddenly aware of the awareness itself, not the content of your mind, but the fact that something is observing the content. It looks like the moment you stop performing even for yourself, when the interior monologue drops its performance and something underneath it simply is. Present, clear, unbothered by the noise above it. That moment, that quality of presence, is what every mystical tradition in human history has been pointing toward. Sophia is one name for it. Consciousness is another. The observer, the witness, the inner knowing, the soul, all different languages for the same territory. The territory that exists beneath thought, beneath emotion, beneath identity, beneath all the constructed layers of self that you have built in order to survive the world as it was given to you. And here is what that territory is like when you actually touch it, not in theory but in genuine experience. It is not dramatic. It does not announce itself with light shows or tingles or visions, though sometimes those things happen as byproducts. What it is this. It is the most ordinary, extraordinary thing you have ever felt. It is ordinary because it was always there. It is the baseline of your existence, not an addition to it. It is extraordinary because after a lifetime of not touching it consciously, the first time you do, it feels like coming home to a home you knew existed. The recognition Sophia brings is not the recognition of something new. It is the recognition of something ancient in you, older than your current identity, older than the stories you carry about who you are and what you are capable of, older than the wounds, older than the adaptations, older than all the ways you learned to be in the world in order to be safe in it. What recognizes Sophia is the part of you that predates all of that, the essential quality of your consciousness before it was shaped by anything external. The original frequency, if you want to use that language, the one that was yours before the world began teaching you to doubt it. Now, let me talk about something practical, because I believe the conversation about awakening has been too long separated from the conversation about ordinary life. And that separation has made it seem like awakening is only available to those who can afford to step outside of ordinary life, to retreat, to meditate for hours daily, to remove themselves from the friction of regular existence. And this is simply not true. In fact, I would argue that ordinary life, the friction, the difficulty, the relentlessness of it is not the obstacle to awakening. It is the curriculum. Every moment of genuine difficulty you have ever faced was offering you a choice that most people never consciously register. It was offering you the choice between contracting into the familiar story about yourself and expanding into something that the familiar story said was not available to you. Every loss that cracked you open, every failure that stripped away a version of yourself you had been maintaining, every relationship that ended and left you sitting with yourself more nakedly than you knew how to, each of these was Sophia moving through your life, not causing the pain, but present in it, using it, threading through the cracks that the pain created to reach the part of you that lies beneath the constructed self. This is why the people who have been through the most difficult experiences often carry a quality of depth that is unmistakable. Not because suffering is noble, it is not, and there is nothing redemptive about pain for its own sake, but because the people who have been through genuine difficulty and have not closed around it, who have stayed open through it, who have allowed it to take apart the lesser versions of themselves without taking apart their essential nature, those people have accidentally done the thing that every spiritual practice is deliberately trying to do. They have been emptied of the false and left with the real. You may recognize this in your own life. There may be experiences behind you that at the time felt like pure loss, pure destruction, pure evidence that the universe was indifferent to your well-being. And yet, when you look back at them now, when you look at who you became in the aftermath, when you feel the depth that those experiences deposited in you, that you did not have before something complicated happens, you cannot call them good. You cannot pretend the pain was worth it in any simple sense, but you can feel, if you are honest, that something was forged in you through those experiences that is genuinely yours in a way that comfort never gave you anything genuinely yours. That forged quality, that depth, that groundedness, that capacity to be present in difficulty without being consumed by it, that is what Sophia's recognition feels like when it finally lands. Not brightness and expansion, though those come. First it feels like solidity, like finally standing on ground that does not shift, like discovering that beneath all the uncertainty and change and loss that life contains, there is something in you that those things cannot actually touch. Something that has been observing all of it, every joy and grief, every triumph and humiliation, from a place of such fundamental stillness that the only word for it is eternal. I am not using that word carelessly. I am not reaching for mystical language to make this sound more impressive than it is. I am using it because when you genuinely touch this level of your own consciousness, the word eternal is not an exaggeration. It is a description. Because what you find there does not feel like a thing that was born and will die with your body. It feels like a thing that has always been present and will always be present, and that your body and your current lifetime are one particular expression of it. One note in a song that is much longer than any single life. This is the knowing that Sophia carries, not as a doctrine to be believed, but as an experience to be had. The knowing that your identity is both particular, specifically you, with your specific history and specific gifts and specific wounds, and also much larger than particular, that you are simultaneously a unique and temporary form and an expression of something that is neither unique nor temporary. Now, I want to be careful here, because this kind of understanding, when it is only intellectual, when it is only something you have read and thought about rather than genuinely experienced, can become a different kind of escape. It can become a way of bypassing the real work of being a particular person in a particular life with particular responsibilities. The awareness that you are, at some level, eternal and expansive does not excuse you from the requirement to be present, honest, and accountable in the specific circumstances of your actual human existence. Sophia does not offer liberation from the ordinary. She offers the ability to be fully present in it without being consumed by it. This distinction matters enormously, because there is a version of spiritual awakening that becomes a kind of inflation where a person uses the language of higher consciousness to avoid the discomfort of genuine growth, where they speak endlessly of frequencies and alignment and resonance, as a way of not doing the harder, quieter, less dramatic work of actually changing the patterns in their daily life, where the vocabulary of awakening becomes a sophisticated way of staying exactly where they are. Real awakening does not make you feel special in a way that separates you from other people. Real awakening makes you feel connected to other people in a way that makes the whole concept of special feel beside the point. Real awakening does not remove you from difficulty. It changes your relationship to difficulty so that you can be present in it without needing it to be otherwise. Real awakening does not give you a new and better identity to perform. It gradually, persistently, sometimes uncomfortably dissolves the performing and leaves behind something that requires no performance because it is not trying to be anything other than what it is. And what it is enough. Completely, fundamentally not in need or proving itself enough. This is the core of what Sophia offers. Not confirmation that you are special above others. Not validation that you were selected when others were passed over. Something quieter and more radical than that. The recognition that the self-concept you have been carrying, the one with all its inadequacies and doubts and carefully maintained defenses, is not who you are. It is a structure you built. And structures, however elaborate, however long they have been standing, can be revised, can be rebuilt, can be, when you finally see them, be clearly for what they are, simply set down. Let me tell you what it looks like when someone actually begins to set it down. Not in a single dramatic moment of enlightenment, though those happen occasionally, and they are as disorienting as they sound, but in the ordinary, incremental way that most genuine transformation actually occurs. It looks like a pause before a reaction. A moment where the habitual response, the one that would have come automatically a year ago, doesn't quite come automatically anymore. Where something creates a small space between the trigger and the response, and in that space, a choice becomes visible that wasn't visible before. Neuroscience has a name for this. It is called expanding the window of tolerance. It is the process by which the nervous system, through repeated practice of staying present rather than contracting or exploding in response to difficulty, gradually becomes capable of holding more emotion, more uncertainty, more complexity, without losing the thread of awareness, without becoming the reaction rather than the person having it. This is what Sophia's territory feels like from the inside when you are living it rather than seeking it. It feels like a gradually increasing capacity to be in your life without being swept away by it, like the floor of your experience getting more solid even as the surface of it remains unpredictable, like developing through no single dramatic breakthrough but through the accumulated practice. Again and again to the awareness beneath the noise, like developing a relationship with the part of yourself that the noise cannot reach. That relationship is the most important relationship of your life, more foundational than any external relationship, though it makes all of them better. More determining of your experience than any circumstance, though circumstances still matter and always will. More available to you than any teacher or teaching, though both can be valuable, because it is not located in the external world at all. It is located in the depth of your own being, and it has been there, available, patient, completely unwavering, for every single moment of your existence. Sophia's oldest name, if you go back far enough through the layers of history that accumulated around her, is wisdom, not the accumulation of knowledge, not the possession of correct beliefs, but something that the ancient Greeks understood with a precision that modern language sometimes loses: the direct perception of what is real, the ability to see through the constructed to the essential, the capacity to be in the presence of confusion, of contradiction, of genuine mystery, and to remain clear enough to act wisely within it. This is what awakening actually grows in you, not certainty, not the elimination of doubt or difficulty or the ambiguity of being human, but the capacity to hold all of that clearly, to see it honestly, and to move through it with the kind of groundedness, but the ground to be perfectly steady in order to walk. Feel that for a moment, the implications of it. If your peace, your genuine functional sense of being okay in the world, is not dependent on circumstances being right, not dependent on other people behaving correctly, not dependent on the future unfolding as you hope, if it is rooted somewhere deeper than all of that, then you are, in the most practical and non-dramatic sense of the word, free. Not free from the experience of difficulty, free within it, free to be present in it, to respond to it with your full intelligence rather than your contracted fear, to make choices from clarity rather than survival. This is what the pursuit of Sophia, when it is genuine rather than performative, actually builds. Not a more impressive spiritual identity, not a more exotic inner life, but a more fundamental freedom. The freedom that comes from no longer being entirely at the mercy of what happens to you, because who you are has become larger than what happens to you. Now let me bring this home to something specific, something you can actually do, not as a technique, not as a practice you perform and then set aside, but as an orientation you can begin to live from starting now, in the actual circumstances of your actual life. Begin to notice the quality of your awareness at any given moment. Not the content, not what you are thinking or feeling, but the quality of the awareness itself. Is it contracted, already certain what it will find? Or is it open, curious, genuinely receptive to what is actually present rather than what it expected to find? This distinction between contracted awareness and open awareness is the most fundamental choice available to you in any moment, and it is available in every moment, regardless of circumstance, regardless of how you feel, regardless of what is happening around you. Contracted awareness is not a failure. It is a response to perceived threat, and it is entirely natural. But it is worth knowing that contracted awareness, even when it feels protective, actually reduces your access to the very intelligence and perception you most need when difficulty arises. It narrows your field of vision precisely when wide vision would serve you best, and open awareness, the deliberate, practiced choice to remain receptive even when something in you wants to close, is not naive. It is not ignoring danger. It is maintaining access to your full capacity precisely when your full capacity is most needed. This is a practice, not a dramatic one, not one that requires extraordinary circumstances or extended retreat. A practice you can begin in this conversation, in this moment, with the simple act of noticing whether your awareness is contracted or open right now, and if it is contracted, making the quiet internal choice to soften it, just slightly, just enough to let a little more in. And then tomorrow do it again, in the difficult, in the frustrating conversation, in the moment of loneliness or uncertainty or self-doubt. Notice the contraction and make the choice. Not perfectly, not always, but with increasing frequency, with increasing skill, building over time the capacity to remain open in a world that constantly invites closure. That is Sophia's practical gift, not visions, not cosmic selection, not the thrill of feeling chosen, but the slow, steady, profoundly dignified development of a consciousness that has learned to remain present in its own life, that has learned to receive what is real rather than only what it expected, that has learned, finally and functionally, that the depth it has been searching for was never somewhere else, was never in a different life, a different body, a different set of circumstances, was always here, has always been here, is here now. You are not behind. You have not missed the window. The awareness that is reading these words, that has followed this conversation this far, that found something in it worth staying for, that awareness is already at the threshold. The question was never whether Sophia would choose you. The question was whether you would choose to look in the direction she has always been pointing, inward, downward beneath the noise, into the part of you that has never needed to be chosen because it has never, not for a single moment of your existence, been anything other than whole. That wholeness is not a destination, it is your nature. And the journey, the real one, the one that lasts and matters and changes everything, is simply the lifelong practice of returning to it, of remembering it when you forget, of choosing it again when something pulls you away, of treating it not as an achievement to be reached, but as a ground to be cultivated. Sophia waits in that ground. She always has. And every time you choose presence over performance, depth over distraction, genuine inquiry over comfortable certainty, every time you do that, in any moment, in any circumstance, you are meeting her. You are, in the only sense that ultimately matters, already home. Where in the world are you watching this from? Leave it in the comments, not as a formality but as a declaration, that you were here, that something in this reached you, that the frequency of genuine recognition found you today, wherever you are, exactly as you are, exactly as you have always been.
I personally researched, wrote, and prepared this video to bring your accurate and meaningful content. Subscribe for more original content.